Out of Cruel Space, Into a Wider Galaxy, Part 81. A scion of many worlds. The flight towards the nearest station was nearly over, and it was already on long-range scanner. Everyone Lacron-born was packed into the bridge and looking at the zoomed-in image of the massive superstructure. Not quite continent-sized, but larger than any city they had ever seen and made of reinforced metals. I wonder if there's something in the paint that makes coloring it all flaming red worth it. Possibly, there are specific types of solar panels designed to take in different forms of light, to say nothing of some people just not liking the look of standard black paneling. You think they're limiting their absorption? No, Emmanuel. This is just vanity. I guarantee those aren't red spectrum solar absorbers. It's just paint, Dr. Skitterway says. Then it's an enormous waste of funds and resources. Reinforced steel looks fine, especially in space as it reflects the stars. Why cover it in hideous matte red paint? It's not hideous, Horace remarks in an amused tone. It's completely out of place on a structure that big. It makes it look like a child's drawing and not a functional station. Good grief, what crawled up your cockpipe? Why are you so pissed off? I've been balancing the budgets of nations. Delegation or not, making sure that everyone is properly paid for in order to get the sheer amount of work modernizing an entire planet running smoothly is absurd. Seeing this much waste at a station that's going to be more rough and tumble than a luxury station or a legitimate ecumenopolis. It's a way station with safe luxuries at the edge of wild space. Not a resort, Emmanuel proclaims. The Lacran natives are now very amused by all this, and Xavier is struggling back a laugh even as Lady Clarity is typing in a request for information on her keypad. It would explain why they just sprayed red paint everywhere, though. Trying to look fancy, but not having a fashion designer, Horace notes. Or someone just seriously loves red, Emmanuel says, sounding annoyed. There was a containment incident with a tanker to a now-abandoned colony settlement. It had a great deal of red paints in it due to some mix-up, and a lot got on the station. So they decided to paint the whole thing red rather than make the station look like it had been dipped in blood somehow. Lady Clarity reads out. Oh, Emmanuel says, feeling silly. It does not go away when Xavier laughs. Right anyways, it's crowded as all get out on the bridge, so I'm going to find somewhere else to be. With that he leaves, and there's a sensation of amusement from the bridge that follows him out. All right, now that that's over, what kind of station are we looking at for entertainment? We know we're going to look at the local Astral Hargath critters, but a station like that does have more to milk the credits out of people looking for a thrill, or those looking for a more calming touch of entertainment after whatever they find in wild space, Horace asks. They have two major zoos on very different sections. An entire portion of the station is based around tourism, meaning entertainment, things to buy in restaurants, to say nothing of those of us that are more interested in other things. There are several factories for weapons and the like, and forges for more unique alloys, Lady Clarity notes. What about glassmakers or the like? Mary II asks. My son isn't going to vanish if you push a giant mirror into him, Dr. Skitterway says. What? No. Who said we're planning on doing anything to him? Mary II asks. I literally overheard your entire conversation. You're not going to hurt him. But do you really want to waste your money to get nothing done? Dr. Skitterway asks, and both Mary II and Oleana look stubborn. Oh my goodness, Lady Aelier says in exasperation. Why does no one think it's weird that everyone's on his side? Oleana demands. He's basically my brother, Horace says, holding up his hand. He's my child, Dr. Skitterway says. He promised big fights, interesting stories, and a lot of glory. He delivered, Magrica says. He bested me fairly in battle and offered honorable surrender. I accepted, Lady Clarity says. Saved my children, married me, and protected my home. Israzin adds in. What's it called? Stockholm Syndrome? Xavier asks. You have not bonded with your captor. You are not trying to rationalize irrational attachment, Dr. Skitterway states. And in my case, girls, he first proved himself as a warrior, and then was willing to negotiate and be reasonable. And then there was that time. See? That there. Why is no one talking about that? People bond during private affairs, Paladin Aelier says delicately. Oh, for the love of... They're not going to get it if you just step around things, Horace says. You're trying to spare their feelings and it's confusing them. So here it is. Women bond to men they have sex with. Sex is the act of making a child with someone. Even if neither of them feel anything for the other, they will still have a bond to the man they had sex with. This is because most races have very few men, and it's smart to keep the man safe so you or other members of your family can have children as well. This is a survival trait that goes backwards all the way to the time when most peoples were animals. So our mother she wants to keep him alive because the baby growing in her womb is his. It's connected them, for now. Honestly, if not for the unusual side effects of the grand midwife techniques, he might have already lost that pheromone-based dependence by laying the egg and having time away from him. But as it stands, with her womb undergoing a more mammalian-style pregnancy, Dr. Skitterway shakes her head. This ritual of the midwives was clearly designed by and for the Aramenta, perhaps the Metak, for every race upon Lacron to give live birth. Not just the Aramenta, Fossa, Metak, and Lirak, but the Horgua, Nagasha, Urthani, and Ceramali are not designed to give live birth. The mammalian features of Ceramali aside, you lay eggs normally. What? But we're both live births, weren't we? And, I mean, isn't it still kind of nasty? I asked to try having a child with him, knowing about the bond, Aeliur says to her daughters. You did? I did. Why? Several reasons. Can you name one that makes it sound like a good idea? Olenna demands. You went in to have the child of, and I think we need to finish this in private, Lady Aeliur says. No, this is weird. This is stupid and strange, and we need to do something about it, Olenna states. No? Lady Aeliur asks. That's right. No. We're talking about this until we understand just what the hell is going on. It was just explained to you, but not why. Do you really want to know? Because one of the most important reasons is thankfully not needed anymore, but it's not something either of you will like hearing. Just tell us, Mary II commands. To bind him. While the physical bond is on the woman, both sides get an emotional bond as well. And to have a potential replacement in case he got killed off. If his promise of rescue was fake, if things went sour, or if he showed myself to be dangerous, we would have a ready hostage in the form of his unborn child. And if the child is a male, then the value would increase, Lady Aeliur says. Mother, that's the same horrible backstabbing and double-dealing that noble houses dishonor themselves with so often it's routine? Yes, it is. Because the fact of the matter is that no matter how pretty his words or how truthful they were in retrospect, we still had a massive point of chaos that could not be contained normally. There were a lot of reasons I had sex with him. Curiosity, lust, even some admiration, but also manipulation. To have something that can destroy everything you and your organization has worked for, wander around without anything you do able to even slow it down, is an inexcusable dereliction of duty, Lady Aeliur exclaims. Knew it, Magrica notes. Oh, you did not? Oh, yeah, I did. It was obvious. Oh, I've read about sex. What's it like? Can you show me? Magrica says in a mocking tone and fluttering her eyes. Lady, you can fight, but you can't lie for shit. You're too honest. And why am I only learning about this now? Lady Aeliur asks in a severely annoyed tone. No real point. If something happened, it happened. Either way, I was getting adventure wealth and more. If more came, then it came. But just because I don't care if more things happen doesn't mean I'm not aware they can. This is a party. I'm on a grand adventure, and with all the moving around I'm doing, my daughters will have more miles under their wings than a dozen generations before they're even weaned. I'm winning here. Why would I stop? Magrica demands, and Lady Aeliur sighs. But our mother is still bound to the moth, Mary II protests. Mary, it's a lover's bond. It's not unbreakable. It has me look upon him favorable and enjoy his presence. I'm not his slave. I can still admit that he's made many mistakes, and honestly should have played the political game more rather than simply assume a position of maximum power. Yes, he could force anyone to do anything, but the precedent it has set is horrific, and there are many, many bruised egos and insulted high ladies he will be dealing with in the years to come. And with the healing comas, perhaps even millennia to come. He entered a delicate situation with all the grace of cannon fire, followed by fire in general. There are many bruised egos only held back by the sheer force he has become. When the fear subsides, there's going to be issues. Unless they somehow find the maturity in themselves to understand that things were done for their own ben, Horace tries to interject, but dissolves into laughter before he can actually finish the word benefit. Oh, it's going to be a hilarious mess. I have no idea how they're going to try to hurt him, but it's going to fail so badly. I wish I could say that was hubris, but I saw his training with the Lady of War. It's going to be either an incredible display or a comedy skit when they try something. Lady Clarity notes, why would you wish it to be hubris? Because the fact that there is literally nothing I can do to actually be of proper service. I am a guard and guardian to an immortal, indestructible god. May as well put makeup on swine for all the use I am. Lady Clarity says, there was a time I would be an equal champion, but he raced away into strength unending, not a fitting posting for an august lady. But no way to leave it without compromising the very nature of my vows and honor. The light Arumenta sighs as she taps a few more controls. It's a mixed blessing. My duty of protection is simple, so simple I have been rendered superfluous. On one hand, my lord is honorable, mighty, of renown and wealth. That is high honor. He is so well learned, skilled in battle, and capable, I am of no use. That is dishonorable. So to bring things back to the primary point of all these discussions, young squires. Lord Skitterway may not be flawless, but his strengths shine so bright you can scarcely see them unless you look. Your mother is no slave, and he no slaver. Attacking him is not only useless, but stupid. You are not only going to fail, but even if by some twist of fate you succeed, you would gain nothing. But how do we know no one here is lying? You've all been benefited by him, or are bound to him. Why wouldn't you lie for him? Oleana asks, and Lady Clarity slams her hands on the console as she rises up, the luminosity of her hair flaring out in a swell of light. You dare to accuse me of deceit? Of lying? I should take your slanderous tongue right out of your skull for that girl, Lady Clarity declares, and finds herself running up against the wing of Lady Allure before she can make it more than 3 steps to the now frightened squire. The two lock eyes for a moment, and Lady Clarity takes a deep breath before nodding. Lady Allure draws back her wing. 4 steps, and Lady Clarity is glowering directly at Mary II and Oleana. You both are hard-headed twits, refusing to even consider you might be in error. While a steadfast nature and enduring mindset may be valuable upon the field of battle, you have both taken it entirely too far. Although I must thank you both, as now I can see another way I may be of proper use to my lord. You're welcome? I will be assisting in your learning. From my understanding, you are both skilled in spear and sword, correct? Correct, Lady Clarity presses. Yes? Good. I will show you the way of the mace, hammer, and axe. More importantly, I will be filling in the gaps of your moral education. You both clearly have had substandard teaching. Understandable considering the hidden plague that consumed our fair world. We will begin when we return to Lacran. Are there any questions? She demands, and behind her, Lady Allure shakes her head at her daughters. They shake their heads as well. Good! Out of Cruel Space into a Wider Galaxy, Part 82. A Scion of Many Worlds. You're shockingly calm about things, Lady Allure notes, and Emmanuel shrugs. I was ready for it. Teenagers are in that wonderful part of their lives where they are nowhere near as ignorant or short-sighted as they were, but nowhere near as informed or far-sighted as they think. They can look their parents in the eye, and that first instinct tells them they are equals now, but it's treacherous. They still have a lot of learning to do. Besides, you've seen how Xavier slowly came around? She's still a work in progress. The best way to do this is to acknowledge that a child's petty gripes are just that, petty. And if you let petty things bother you, you're never going to get anything done. Easy enough to say when your daughters aren't directly insulting someone in such a way that she has dueling rights on them. True, as a deposed queen and then restored queen, Xavier never had such odd bits of standing strife, but I'm fairly sure if she pushed it too far, any number of my soldiers would have slapped her down for being an idiot, Emmanuel notes. She came close a few times when you weren't directly nearby. She was pretty convinced that you had some kind of spell over the women for a day or two. She ended up talking to many people and, oh, that is where I've made my mistake, isn't it? My daughters were secluded from nearly all the drama and action. It was a blessing that they were training in a safe location, but they didn't witness the change or speak to people as the changes were happening. So the world just flipped itself upside down, and we all seemed to think them fools for not being part of it. Well, thankfully, being here should expand their horizons a little, or a lot. I imagine seeing animals from dozens of different worlds, seeing films and hearing music from even more, and people in such number and type as to stretch their imagination will make them reconsider. Unless it overwhelms them and they double down. I do love my daughters, but I'm not blind. They're fools. A fool is one who lacks wisdom. Wisdom is won through experience. Do you have a saying for everything? A stream babbles without end, but says nothing. Do you have nothing but proverbs to say? Lady Allure asks, around a chuckle. No, I just figured you needed a laugh, Emmanuel says with more than a little humor. Besides, for all that they just proved themselves stupidly stubborn, I think they're about to get a big wake-up call. After all the reactions we're all about to receive, it will let them know they're not crazy for thinking it's odd, but also that it's not what they think it is, or at least have other voices offering differing ideas. Is it really so odd for a ceremony to bear live young? It's not unheard of, but always the result of something unusual happening. If there is no meddling with axiom, chemicals, or surgery to adjust the womb of the woman, then a ceremony lays an egg rather than bearing the young live. And the methods of the grand midwives do indeed alter the womb of the woman. It has to, otherwise the potential life inside does not become. You are asking the wrong woman, for all the ritual was performed on me, twice no less. I do not know the mechanics behind it, and am only just barely qualified to assist without causing it to fail, Lady Allure says. Then there is a slight ding to alert them that the speakers are about to go off. We've finished our primary docking procedures and are just waiting for the airlock to finish its cycling and scan. There's been a parasite scare, and the station is making sure no one enters, covered in something called Bakwin ticks? I'm uncertain if that is the correct pronunciation, Lady Clarity's voice says over the speakers, which means there will be another scan before the airlock opens on the other side, and they'll refuse us if we have parasites, Emmanuel says as he rises up fully. He goes from merely looming over Lady Allure to well and truly tower. She barely reaches his upper thigh and only just grab his belt if she were to try and reach up. All right, time to grab our stuff then. And don't worry, it doesn't matter how rude or silly they are. Both Mary and Oleana are under my protection, Emmanuel says. I know, I just hope they don't find a way to lose that. Short of attacking you or another member of our group, they can't do that. Although straight-up crime will not be put up with. Good, Lady Allure states. I'm their mother, not their enabler. Some would call that one and the same. Not me. Good. He awakens suddenly. Everything slams into place and he sits up and scans the room for threats, cover, escape, tactical advantage, and possible weapons. His every nerve is fresh and hypersensitive. Part of him, deep down, wants to scream. Everything is the literal worst he's ever been through, but he tries to crack his neck, but there's not even that level of stiffness to him. He is weak. His muscles are small and frail. His heart is weak. His lungs pathetic. But his memory feels whole. He had been correct. One of the refinements of the technique guaranteed his memories regardless of potential complications. He pulls in as deep a breath as he can, and there's barely anything in him before he has to exhale. Lung capacity, pathetic. Muscle density and mass, worse. His every nerve is hypersensitive and raw. He runs a hand over his head and, bald as an egg. A touch of vanity hits him, and he focuses some axiom into his scalp. The strangeness of the sensation nearly makes him panic, but the following sensation of his hair growing at hyperspeed is stranger still. He tosses the dirt brown hair back and looks around. His initial and automatic scan of the room when he opened his eyes let him know there was a bundle of clothing ready for him and his sword over top. There was also a communicator laid screen down on top of the clothing, but under the sword. He rises up. Every breath of air feels like shards of glass down his throat and into his lungs. His heightened awareness is a bad mix with a completely fresh and untested body. He picks up the sword and it's heavy. Damn, he's not even starting with the build of a scrawny dork. He's starting from scratch, the kind of scratch babies start with. Barely able to move. Not good. The two words alone make his head feel like it was shaken. He is damnably frail. A frown crosses his face and he nods to himself. That just means he has more to do. And he will do more. He is undaunted. This is just going to make him stronger. A minute later, he is dressed despite even the softest cloth feeling like it was woven from barbed wire and lifts the communicator that feels like it's trying to force his arm down. He's so weak that it's shaking in his grip. Call us when you're awake. There were complications, but your memories are preserved. He reads out the message before checking the time. 50 hours, 45 minutes in surgery. His body had rejected several parts of neural tissue, and if not for the memory copies, he wouldn't even have language capacity at this rate. Thank God for retention bands. He taps in a note to Urea to say he's awake and going to try and get to the closest gym for as much rehab as he can stand because he's as weak as a baby. There's a knock at the door. Come in, he says, and it opens to show an alpha woman in a doctor's coat. Hello, young man. Ready to start your rehab? Born ready. Technically, you weren't born. Yeah, well, I'm just built different. I don't think that's how the phrase is supposed to be used. Well, you win some, you lose some. That's definitely not how that phrase is meant to be used. Well, when you gotta go, you gotta go. You can stop now. Can I? You can. All right, fine. Lead the way. Well, is that a mangled quote or phrase too? Yes, but only in the light of everything's been said by someone somewhere, including this, Harold says. I see your sense of humor is intact, if only just a sense, she says, and he chuckles. Now you're getting it. Lead the way, Doc. The airlock finishes its scan and cycle before opening. It had required a bit of extra time and the expanded bags placed under specialized sensors before letting them through. Welcome to High Harbor Station. Enjoy your stay at the edge of the great unknown. An automated message declares and the group pauses for a moment. Wait, don't we come from that great unknown? Xavier asks. Yep. Emmanuel answers as he steps out of the airlock to lead the way. Horace is right behind him and steps to the other side, both of them providing massive visual blocks down the hallways. Then it's not unknown. There are whole worlds. Xavier, my dear daughter, if you dedicate your time trying to correct every mistake others make, you'll never have time for anything else, Emmanuel says. Is that why you fell into a pile of bedding and slept for 3 days after rescue arrived at La Crenne? Xavier asks. I didn't sleep for that long, Emmanuel protests. Yes, you did, Xavier taunts back as she struts out with Issa risen, carrying each of her daughters tucked in an arm and their things in a purse behind her. Now, let's first see to our accommodations and get ourselves situated, Issa risen suggests. My lord, I understand you, but could you please let me at least look like I'm doing my duty as your sworn knight? Lady Clarity asks. Oh, sorry. Go right ahead, Emmanuel says as he moves out of the way for Clarity to take up a defensive stance beyond him. I think you should switch to the more ornamental weapons, young lady. A shinning war mace sends one kind of message. A well-used one sends another. Lady Clarity clears up. She turns back and both Mary and Oleana shift back to leave the ship after their mother instead of before. So where are we? Whoa, hold on, Magrica starts to say, as she rushes past Lady Clarity before pausing and putting her hand on her stomach. Fussy little things. Let's get moving, Emmanuel says, and as they move through the disembarking portion of the docking station, there's a sudden intake of breath as people start spotting their group. Then the chrome corridors and maintenance panels give way to wood paneling and soft blue walls as everything opens up to show numerous buildings and towers connected by crosswalks with more than enough room to fly or jump between. Already a small crowd is following, snapping pictures at the sight of the group and whispering among themselves. Xavier smirks a little at it, preening somewhat as the attention falls to her, even if most of it is directed at Emmanuel. They head towards one of the thicker towers, and at the base level is a well-to-do-looking hotel, taking up the first 20 levels. As they enter, the receptionist looks up from her communicator and then freezes at the sight of them. Hello, I am Mr. Skidaway, here with family. I believe my reservations are on the 5th floor. Emmanuel asks, and the Horshka woman blinks before slowly turning to her console and checking, then looking up as if to confirm that they are in fact there. They are. She looks down again and looks back up. "Why's the funny-looking lady doing that?" Sashisa asks, pointing at her. "Sashisa, it's rude to call people funny," Isa Raisin chides her. "But she looks funny." "Be that as it may, it's still rude," Isa Raisin repeats herself. "Oh, sorry, lady," Sashisa calls out. Yeah, Skidaway, right here. Why didn't you inform us that you, because this is a quick family trip done mostly on a whimsy. Otherwise, you would bankrupt yourself trying to prepare." "So no, don't worry. Now access codes, please," Emmanuel asks. "But our rooms aren't good enough for—" "Relax. Those of us that haven't lived in literal primitive conditions are soldiers or pragmatic to the core. The rooms here are fine. This is a quick, spontaneous family vacation." "Right. You have the D suite of floor 5. Here are your access chits. It has a small kitchen, pantry, 2 bathrooms and 5 bedrooms, all at Canador scale." "That is what I ordered," Emmanuel confirms. "Okay. Okay. Our furniture is more hard-wearing as we tend to cater to explorers and thrill-seekers, so it's not as opulent as—" "The first bed I slept in as a primal was a gigantic pile of blankets. It's fine," Emmanuel assures her. Out of cruel space, into a wider galaxy. Part 83. A scion of many worlds. He hates that he has to stop. His new body needs all the rest and food it can take, and like all other parts of his anatomy, it was undersized. He needed more food, but his stomach was full. And considering he had filled it with nutrient blocks, more nutrient bricks from how well they went down, he had literally maximum nutrition inside himself and covered in water to boot. His stomach is literally full, not just sated, but physically incapable of fitting more inside it. And mentally, he's not sated at all. Nutrition bricks, while insanely calorie, vitamin, and mineral dense, just doesn't have anything that satisfies the primal urges. His body is running on empty, no fat stores, pitiful muscles for emergency fuel, and oversensitive everything. He understands why babies spend so much of their time crying. Everything is too new, too bright, and too raw. His eyes crack open as an incredible danger approaches. Then he forces himself to calm as he recognizes the flavor. Overwhelming. It's Thessalia. It is nearly a minute later that the door is open. But she only just arrived. So there is an upside to his every nerve being raw and overstimulated. Near precognition. Not good, she notes. "No, but I will live. And grow from this," he answers. "Thankfully, all the others are babies, so this kind of weakness and frailty will be normal. Although I expect they'll be hooked up to nutrient tubes to ensure they get all the nourishment they need." "And are you getting yours?" she asks, and he nods. "I have physically filled my stomach and started my body moving. I can do no more but wait for now," he says, and she nods. Most would push themselves with axiom. Most are fools who cannot breathe without it. I have not defied the circumstances of my creation just to grow too stupid to learn how to breathe, he says as he feels his guts churning ever so slightly. The first time is the worst time for many things. The first time he's digested anything is horrible. Again, no wonder babies cry. Just what had they done to him that he had woken up at 6 months of age, feeling as if he had lived all those years? The memory download would not accommodate such a thing. Something about the cocktail of chemicals and poisons he had been tested on must have numbed him, damaged his nerves or something. He hadn't even noticed aging nearly 5 years in a month. "You're not speeding things up?" "Not this first time." "First time? Do you expect to replace your entire body again?" "By which I mean this first meal and exercise. I need to understand my new self if I'm going to strengthen it." Harold corrects himself. "Just because a scientific readout says I'm in perfect health doesn't mean I am. Book learning and knowledge only goes so far. You need to live something to know it." "An interesting point of view," she says. "You disagree?" "No, but I do not agree either." "It is, however, interesting," she says, and he nods. He can outright feel parts of his body gurgling and squirming, ever so as thin, unused intestinal tubes slowly fill and inflate. He can feel his stomach gaining some size in it as the slow process of digestion puts things to work. He is not looking forward to his first use of the toilet. You're focusing entirely on the physical, not on axiom at all. I do not think I have lost any axiom skill. Show me, she says, and he looks right up at her. She is unarmed, still more dangerous than the cannons of the ship they are on, and capable of striking harder than the entire vessel, ramming into something at maximum velocity. He finds his lips quirking upwards in a smirk. All right then, I hope you don't mind if I set the pace, he says slowly, rising to his feet and rolling his neck. Still no cracks, despite the fact he had just pushed himself to the point he felt like dying to run a kilometer. His maximum bench is barely the bar alone, and his chin-up is to hang uselessly. Time to fight a god. He pulls in the axiom and rockets forward before flickering away. He is behind her, and she is twisting to meet him as he fades again. Momentum exists. The first blink was just to see if she'd spin clockwise or counter. He fades back in further along the spin, and he punches. Her finger catches his bony fist with ease, but if it hadn't, he would have struck the back of her head. His feet come up to her back, and he doesn't kick, but instead jumps off, axiom assisting the movement as he's no longer strong enough to do it unaided, and dodges a few retaliatory grabs. As he moves through the air, the coils under him shift, and the Thessalia's mighty tail reminds him just how deadly the lower body of a Nagasha is. It coils around him, but with axiom giving him speed, and admittedly with Thessalia's mercy, he slips through the coils before they can grasp him and finds his balance on the ground. He then shifts to the side to avoid the mass of tail muscle and scales slamming down on his location, a literal fist of God in serpent form. Or not, his mind is a little scattered. The physical portions that help affect willpower are fresh as well. He's more running on stubborn stupidity than will, but does it really matter which one it is in the end? It's the same result. He's in it to win it as nothing more than skin and bones against a living god. Pride makes fools and drives men to madness. But right now it has him shifting away as the tail uncoils, and he leaps over it to let it pass beneath. The frill suddenly extends and it catches his feet to spin him in the air. He forces the spin to go faster, and he lands on his feet before bolting towards a weight rack. Thessalia rapidly catches the entire rack of weights being thrown at her, followed by the rack itself. She also puts it down and in its proper order before he's closed even half the distance. A finger stops his knee inches from her face, and he moves to shift again, but she's seen enough and disrupts the axiom. His quick teleport is disrupted, and he appears just as her hand comes down on his head. Very well done. You've lost none of your ferocity or creativity. She compliments him. With axiom, you still fight well enough that most people would be at the very least slowed if not soundly defeated by you, and a proper soldier would have to be well prepared to face you. Thank you. That aside, you've lost some of the power you had before. You do understand that axiom is a multiplier, and the stronger your muscles, the greater effect that multiplier is, she says. But you haven't need any beyond disrupting my teleport, he says. The fact you're still comparing yourself to me speak volumes on your sheer will to fight, Thessalia says with a smile. Now, I assume that since you've specified that this first time you're not accelerating things, you intend to accelerate your development after this first dry run? Yes. Good. I look forward to seeing how well you develop, Thessalia says before nodding at him and departing. The moment she reaches the door, she stops. Harold's eyes widen. There are more presences. Dangerous, yes, but so small compared to Thessalia, she took all his attention. She notices his noticing. Oh, you are a quick one. She then turns to just outside the door. I approve, not only of him, but your plan. Enjoy, dear granddaughter. Then she slithers away and she is suddenly gone as the sheer presence of the war goddess vanishes. Jiria and Yevra slide into the doorframe. Holy fuck, how shit was your hunting? Javra demands the moment she sees him. Freshly bioprinted muscles have no conditioning, and making them overlarge is just a waste of time as the whole thing has to be done as fast as possible to stop the patient from hitting a lethal shock threshold. Making all my muscles big and strong would have eaten into that time. And you couldn't make them in advance? With my aging so much so quickly, it had to be done fast to make sure there wouldn't be a sudden disconnect, and all the systems of the body are intertwined. I don't fully understand it, but it was explained to me. Granted, most of it sounded as arcane as the vague description the big moth gives out on how he ascended. But in summary, it has to be done fast and seamlessly, or the consciousness never returns. So you came really close to dying, Javra says. He came no closer than any other surgery involving a vital organ. Jiria says, I really don't like the idea of someone cutting into my heart or head. She says, it can be nerve-wracking, Harold says. So I've eaten until I'm completely full, pushed my body as hard as I can, and then had a quick combat test with a goddess. I think I've earned a few minutes, sit down. So just like this? Xavier asks as the airlock starts cycling. Yes, for the 5th time. Yes, it's on and working flawlessly, Emmanuel says. And the emergency recall? Primed and ready. If you start showing any sign of decompression, you will instantly be in the nearest medical bay. Okay. You were nowhere near this nervous when I took you flying up above Lacran. I had a whole world right there. It's a remarkable place, but it's no world, Xavier says. And to be without air is, Emmanuel prompts, not telling her that the air is already gone and the airlock is just waiting for him to press the final button. Have I ever been without air? Not yet, but the funny thing is, he says before pressing the button and causing the door to open, you still have air in you, don't you? Oh wow. I didn't think the stars would look so different from here, she says, then looks around. Where is Lacran? Emmanuel crunches the numbers in his head and considers before pointing straight downwards. That way, I believe. I'd need a proper astrogation map to be sure, though. Space is very complicated to navigate. Everything is so far apart, looks different from one moment to the next, and always moving. Every part of it. You can find your way through, of course, but it's not easy. So keep these big funny boots and belt on? Xavier asks. Yes, the magnetic boots and atmospheric belt are both requirements for a spacewalk. Some people don't feel safe doing this without a hard suit. Hard suit? Like power armor, but not designed to fight, designed to keep you alive. Wouldn't that make it really protective too? She asks and he nods before stepping out and into the void. From afar, the metal of the space station looked like one large matte red surface with no seams or flaws. Up close, it was easy to see all the tiny dents, welding lines, scrapes, bumps, and of course, numerous patches bolted into place or reinforced portions of the hull, to say nothing of areas that had been expanded towering like cliffs. For all that a space station is an artificial construct, it is only comparable to moons or parts of worlds. So how do we find them? Xavier asks after a few moments. Emmanuel kneels down and holds out his claw for her hand. She grabs his claw and he gently turns her hand over and begins channeling Axiom. This is a lot like the engines of the shuttle? He asks and she nods. It doesn't take much longer than a few moments before something unveils itself. Emmanuel sucks in a breath as he sees it all. The tiny thing had twisted through the other direction to be here, swimming just between it and the Axiom. But that's how it did it. It's how they get everywhere, even past most nets, grills, and barriers to keep them out. The tiny figure is maybe the length of Xavier's hand, front heavy with an underbite on its snapping jaw that comes together to look round. 6 tiny eyes, 3 on each side, glow with blue light as the self-illuminated starfish nuzzles into her hand. Its head is maybe the size of a tennis ball and takes nearly half its length and more than half its mass. A fin sticks out to each side. They're mostly translucent, but look like flexible hands reaching out to grab the nothingness around it. Most of its body is transparent and reveals little, if anything, in the way of a digestive tract. Simultaneously tougher than almost any species to survive unaided in vacuum, but so fragile that standard gravity and atmosphere is nearly instantly lethal. It's purring, Xavier says in wonder. She can't truly hear it, but she can feel its vibrations in her hand as it rubs its face against them, trying to get close and enjoy her presence. It's happy. Axiom is its main food source, so we're twisting the Axiom to be extra tasty, You're feeding it a treat, he says as more and more astral Hargath appear, drawn to his presence more than hers. They start nuzzling up to his fur and trying to entangle themselves with him. Xavier looks up at him and starts laughing at the sight of the glowing and translucent fish slowly swarming the large eartheny man. Not all of them are gathering around him, though. Xavier's hair is also popular, as well as Xavier in general. Then she sucks in a gasp as two of the tiny fish start fighting, and tiny bursts of white sparking energy are traded between the two, and one is driven off, unharmed but clearly the loser in the engagement. The energy, while tiny to both Xavier and Emmanuel, was considerably larger than each individual Hargath. Is that how it happened? How the nest in the colony failed? Likely, Emmanuel says. When they're this size, that light show is almost harmless. But if it's larger than this station, it's a wonder any part of the nest survived. It is. Out of cruel space, into a wider galaxy. Part 84. A scion of many worlds. Emmanuel notes as he draws back his antenna with an astral Hargath clamped onto it. It's a hell of a show, as it's a sensory organ the tiny thing is trying and failing to eat. But at the same time, he's learning a lot. Why did that one bite you? Xavier asks as the fruitlessly gnawing Hargath tries and fails to break a single hair on Emmanuel's antenna. I stuck it into the other direction. Turns out that if you're in the wrong place, they get snappy, Emmanuel notes plainly. Wait, so you stuck your antenna in the spirit world and they bit it? Yep, one of the Undaunted, an adept named Franklin, he stuck his face in the other direction and nearly had it chewed off in seconds. He was on a planet at the time, though, so the Hargath wouldn't have followed him out. But we're in the void now, so this one's hanging on to keep trying. He twitches the antenna around. The look into a multi-dimensional digestive tract is interesting, but very distracting. And he's here with his daughter, so distractions can buzz off. A few more twitches, and the creature loses its grip on his antenna and swims off and away before vanishing. So these little things are dangerous, but not here. Or not when we're like this. Wait, if I were to die, would they eat my soul? Not any part that matters, Emmanuel says, and she gasps. No, don't panic. That came out wrong. You have a part of the soul I call the tether. The tether is used when the soul is alive to stay alive. Without it, the soul cannot hold on to its body. But it does no harm to the soul without it. Even from here, I can see souls without tethers that are otherwise fully intact. They don't seem hurt. But you don't know for certain? No, but seeing as how there is no panic on these recently dead, I'm going to continue to assume that losing the tether only destroys the ability to be resurrected, Emmanuel states. There are ghosts here. A few. Even now, most are fading into their afterlives. Only one or two are lingering, and they're mostly just looking at things in seeming awe from the angle of the other direction. What's it really like? It's like seeing in, through and around something all at once, but more. Most sight is about understanding 3 dimensions, length, width, and height, but you see in at least 6 from the other direction, and it's confusing. It's breathtaking and beautiful, but confusing, Emmanuel states, to say nothing of what an afterlife looks like from the outside. Larger than a world, smaller than a mote of dust. So young it has yet to be born, and so ancient that it always was. I don't know any words in any language to truly describe them, and things just get more incredible and inexplicable from there. And the furthest place? Time itself is absent, but you still are. You should be frozen. Everything but you is frozen. You still are. And I think that is what starts separating a normal person from a primal. Time isn't and is passing for them. They have to change, and they're there until they do. But there is no time there, so they simply do. The moment they arrive, the moment they leave. I don't know how long I was in there. I know that Mother's scanning drone had long run out of memory while within. Time without time? I can't imagine it, she says. It's everything all at once. I know some things happened after others, but did they take seconds, minutes, millennia? There's no way of knowing. It took all of them and none of them. He shrugs. Still, we've started talking all over. What do you think of our little fish friends? You know something about them that few do now, and you've got them all over you. Coming from the big moth that has so many of the weird little things that you're basically wearing a suit of them? She asks. Yes. He answers simply and she smiles. She then gently grasps one of the little creatures and holds it up so she looks at it head on. It's so hard to believe that one of these did so much. They seem so harmless, so friendly even. She gently kisses the thing between the eyes. Then she lets it go to watch it swim away into the void and then vanish. Without her focusing the axiom to mimic an engine, it's already drifting off to look for something more. But they turn violent in the other direction. It's so strange. But there is an appeal to them. If I could, I'd like one as a pet, but they do not wish to be close to their elder, and they cannot survive either gravity or air. I know, I said, if I could for a reason. Xavier says as the crowd of engine nuzzlers start to disperse. A few of them are still sticking around and tasting the changes Emmanuel and Xavier make to the local axiom. But soon they decide they prefer the presence of axiom ride and swim away before vanishing. We're here for a bit, so if you'd like to see them again, you can, Emmanuel offers. I'd like that. For all that they're strange and possible dangerous in their own way, I do like them. There are a few animals that aren't beautiful in their own ways. Even flies? Have you seen their eyes? Little polished gemstones? Bacteria. Simplicity has its own beauty. Guitar mold. Did you know you can make art of it if you place nutrients at the right places? Let me think. Mud pinchers. If they sense something coming, they start sticking their claws out of the mud, all eager like a little child. Oh, come on, Xavier exclaims, and he sticks out his proboscis and waves it at her. She slaps it, and he withdraws the dangerous organ with a chuckle. Geez, I want to explore the outside of this place. Sure, Emmanuel says, and she gives him an odd look. So it's not dangerous. It is, but I'm fast enough to shelter you if we get a micro-meteor shower or some ship doing something stupid, Emmanuel says. So go ahead, explore, poke around. I'll keep you safe as you have fun. She smiles at him. Oh, hello? Emmanuel says as he and Xavier exit a different airlock than the original one they departed. That one is in sight in the distance, though, and both of them lean around the Lyrak woman who's staring at them and see the large crowd formed at the entrance they're expected at. So how long until they notice we're not in space anymore, Sean? Xavier asks. Who can say? One could turn around at any moment, Emmanuel says. You, the Lyrak says, and Emmanuel gives her a cheery wave with his claw. Emmanuel Skitterway, this is adorable daughter Xavier. Pleased to meet you, he says in a downright chirpy tone. Are you seriously acting this flippant when the woman is this stunned? Xavier asks. Well, what do you want me to do? Puff up and tell her to cower before me like some overinflated drama student? Emmanuel asks, and Xavier just stares at him for a moment. I've seen you act with decorum. You know how. I do. I also know when. And when we're on vacation is not the when, Emmanuel states. There you are. I figured you'd pull that, Horace says, and the Lyrak jumps in shock as she's suddenly aware of the gigantic, dark-skinned man. The fact that he's wearing a shirt that would make Hoagie on Octaron Spin jealous has apparently done nothing to get in the way of his stealth abilities. I got you something. He tosses Emmanuel a bundle, and it's another Hawaiian-style shirt, with all sorts of colorful lizards resting on logs. The massive Earthani chuckles and quickly has it on, overtop his t-shirt, and fist bumps his brother. Love it. Looks awful. I know, right? There's some metaphorical gold in the nearby shops, Horace says as he pulls out a gigantic pair of novelty sunglasses that look like he's wearing a plastic boomerang on his face. Emmanuel starts laughing at him just before he pulls up a disco pose. You dumbass! Don't be jealous of my mad drip. You may be a god, but I got style beyond anything you can touch, Horace taunts him. Excuse me, I'm the one with the wonder fur, Emmanuel says, posing. And I am a chocolate dream, Horace counters as he mirrors the pose. Oh, sweet ancestors, stop, Xavier shouts. There is a sudden chatter as both titans turn to regard the crowd that's now staring at them. Whoops. It was going to happen eventually, Emmanuel says with a shrug. Earthani, Drain, Zedin, and Brudarshana are the main parts of the crowd. They rush up to him and there's a babbling that there's a whole hell of a lot of, my lord, mighty one, and holy God thrown around. Ah, fans, don't you just love 'em? Horace asks with a toothy smile. Dad? Xavier asks as Emmanuel lets out a sigh. People, thank you for your adulation, but I'm here on vacation. Right now I'm just an oversized tourist. See the shirt? Tourist. There was a very pregnant pause. Now, since I have all this attention, my name is not Lord God or Mighty One. I am Emmanuel Jasper Blue Skitterway. Emmanuel works for most, Jasper does for some others. This is my sworn brother Horace and adopted daughter Xavier. Pleased to meet you. Dead silence. Bit too popular there, bro, Horace says, tilting up his ridiculous sunglasses, and Emmanuel shrugs. It is what it is, Emmanuel states. Now, while I may be on vacation, is there anything I can do for you? If for no other purpose than ensuring that there's no one desperate for my help. Not sure that was the right thing to say, Horace remarks glibly. Can it? Emmanuel volleys at him as more reflex than any actual annoyance. What do you want from us? One of the Earthani asks, and Emmanuel blinks. His eyes single out the woman and gives her a confused look. I don't want anything. I don't have some grand plan for the Earthani. But you're a primal. They only come as they are needed. And the need for me has come and then gone. The great enemy I faced is defeated, and an entire world is entering a golden age. Besides, I am the first primal Earthani. My situation is unique. I do not know how others will emerge or when, and I do not encourage pushing Earthani of any age or strain to their limits in the hopes of finding how. If the Nagasha have anything to teach us in that regard, then let the lesson of the folly of forcing primal ascension be well learned. You're starting to speechify again, Horace warns him, and Emmanuel lets out a rueful laugh. Sorry, I'll knock it off, Emmanuel says. Anyways, is there anything important? Someone hurt? Lives at risk? Are the bulkheads going to fail? No. Then you'll be fine without me. Right now I'm just a plus-size moth with family and friends, he says with a kindly smile. I was just showing my little girl here how to lure in and play with engine nuzzlers. Gotta start slow, right? Before he can continue, he gets a call on his communicator. Excuse me. Hey, they've got you on TV, Magrika tells him. Liv? I think so. You're inside the station, right? Yes. And you're on your communicator, right? Yeah. Then yes. From what direction? Straight ahead, she says, and he scans the crowd. No communicators out, and they're a little below anyways, so he looks beyond. There's a distortion on the edge of the airlock he had exited the station from. You're looking right at it. Someone's hidden a camera, he notes. Great. Someone was around and that didn't think his privacy was worth respecting. Or that a popular figure was owed any. Jerk. Then he grins as he figures out a great way to handle it. I have an idea. Have fun, Magrika bids him before hanging up. He gets the hint of something clinking just before she does, so he assumes she's found some kind of exotic food to try. Good for her. He pockets the communicator and points at the camera. Xavier, see that distortion? Not through the crowd? Xavier answers, and he crouches down, picks her up, and puts her on his shoulder. Then stands up again before pointing once more. Oh, yes I do. What is it? That is a camera that someone is hiding for some reason, likely because they don't respect any privacy. We might want. What makes you say that? If they weren't doing something shameful, they would feel no need to hide it. Okay, why are you pointing it out to me? Think you can get it from here? Emmanuel challenges, and Horace snorts in amusement. We could both get it from here. You might even be able to stretch that tongue of yours to do it, Horace says. We could, but someone here has been working on her aim, and I've thought of a way to keep it up. What? But you said a vacation is when we relax. That's right, but the idea I have is entertainment. You don't have to, but if you fire upon and strike down hidden cameras like that, without hurting other people or damaging anything else, then I will buy any one thing of your choosing per camera. Anything. Within reason. You won't get entire starships out of this, and if it's illegal to own, you're not getting it. But otherwise, fire, Emmanuel says, and Xavier stands upon his shoulder and he holds out his arm to give her a larger area to stand upon. She then conjures a bow of light and slowly draws back a golden arrow. She takes a few moments and then releases the arrow. The distortion dodges and starts skittering away. A flurry of further arrows follow it until one hits dead center and the small insect-shaped camera drone falls off the wall with a hole in it. That's one, Emmanuel says, and Xavier starts laughing. Out of cruel space into a wider galaxy, Part 85, a scion of many worlds. The first use of one's sphincter is horrific. The nerves firing off for the first time as filth is forced out is deeply unpleasant. So he's taking it out on some local wildlife. Not the megafauna, which is why he presumed this world was originally slated for colonization so long ago. A hunting outpost? That's good tourism. No, he's fighting what's called a river spear. Sort of a freshwater eel that's way too big for the smaller rivers and streams they hunted. The bastards are ambush predators, and the entire front of its face is a maw with massive fangs, serrated in just such a way that the torn ribbons of whatever they bite has only one way to go. In its slimy length is wrapped around his torso, which is starting to fill out as he's accelerated his metabolism and has been more or less shoveling wheelbarrows worth of food down. And he's holding off its snapping jaws. He could just bash its head against a tree or rip things out with axiom, but he's using minimum axiom and holding it off as it slowly suffocates. Then he's going to eat it. That's his workout plan. Wrestle wildlife, consume wildlife, repeat. A bit simple, but there's an elegance in simplicity. You know those don't have a lot of meat on them, right? They're almost all bone and sour organs, Javra asks him. I do, which means I'm going to have to find a few more to have a proper meal, Harold says calmly. Well, they're normally avoided food-wise. It might be interesting to... Javra begins before a massive bang rings out, and Harold shifts to dodge as the bullet goes clean through the head of the river spear and barely misses him. The corpse goes limp around him, and he tosses it to the shoreline as a ceremony descends from above, with a smoking musket in her hands. Her armor is mostly leather, lending itself more to being easy to fly in, while still deflecting glancing blows. Hello, he greets her as he starts looking for the eddies that the river spears prefer. Are you all right? I am, but I'm also looking to get stronger, so I'm fighting my every meal with my hands alone, he says. Oh, I thought you were under attack. I was prolonging my win against it, making sure I got as much fight as possible without letting it actually hurt me. Harold answers. Oh, is that why you're heading to where another may be lairing? She asks. Exactly. Do you want some? More excuse to wrestle wild animals for me. Why are you wrestling wild animals? Well, I'm currently lacking in muscle strength and need to get it back. I just went through a surgery that saved my life, but stole my strength. So I need to get working, he says. Just like that, you are injured in a way that the only path to health is also to weakness. So you take it and then begin working on your strength. It is the better way. If you live, you can grow strong again and much more besides. So I chose to live and regain my strength rather than simply have a very short time with plenty of strength, Harold says before he shields himself with axiom and enters the strike range of the river spear. Its fangs clamp around his ankle, and it tries to twist off chunks of flesh, but fails. He reaches down and grabs it behind that jaw to heft it out of the water, and it starts thrashing, wraps around his upper torso, and starts jerking in every direction to try and unbalance him, bring him into the water and bite his face off all at the same time. Still, you didn't answer me. Do you want some? What if I want some whale meat? She asks. Then I'm in for a hell of a fight? He asks as he holds it away. She scoffs, even as she occupies her arms in the cleaning of the musket. So why the old black powder beast there? Working through the ages. My tribe decided to only use weapons we understand when the Great Rescue arrived. So I only use weapons I can make, which means clubs, knives, swords, axes, hammers, bows, crossbows, and now muskets and pistols. Soon it will be rifles and revolvers, then automatics and grenades. Then I will learn coil guns and railgun. Then I will learn of laser and plasma. Smart. Knowing how your weapon is put together is a powerful step to keeping them not only in one piece but letting you do all sorts of things with them, Harold says calmly, as if a 10-foot-long eel with jagged teeth wasn't trying to eat him. She nods before tilting her head to the side and slowly removing her helmet. The reinforced veil hanging from it only allowed her 4 eyes to be seen. Turns out she's a brunette. So I was told you had the pieces that were once you? No, it turns out that the replaced parts are reserved for experimentation, trying to find better ways to clear out accelerated aging. Harold replies before shrugging. It makes sense. Apparently, the original version actually couldn't keep up with how much I was rapidly aging. So the better they can make it, the better all around, I presume. I see. Do you know why I am here? She asks, likely related to the plan that Thessaly approved of. Tell me, do you know it? She was rather elusive about things whenever I asked. Only that she had to get into contact with a cousin of hers as well. She sent me here because she liked what she saw, apparently. And you are? Perhaps you should introduce yourself first and name your deeds. Oh, fine then. I am Harold Armory Jameson, created to test the limits of a human body, imbued with the memories of my brother to allow me to live, and at a mere 3 days from my emerging out of my glass and metal womb, I laid low many foes with powerful armors and put down a rebellion against an ally. Before I was healed, I fought and impressed the Lady of War, and the battle took me from the ground to beyond the sky in a matter of moments. I not only endured her retaliation, but continued my assault upon her even as I was overwhelmed by her unending strength. Armory? A wonderful name, for I am Dumaya the Forge Mistress. When I was but a mere forger of arrowheads, they tasted the blood of many slavers and beasts. Often by the bows of others, it must be admitted. But my own bow ensured many deaths. When I began to forge knives, they were for more than skinning or feasting. My later spears were touted as the finest in all the tribes, and eventually I was known as the finest spearwoman. On no less than 3 occasions I have thrown back raiding bands on my own. Nice, he says. There's no real reason to disbelieve it. The stories of a person can range from the odd to the incredible. All right, so you approve, she asks, and he raises an eyebrow before understanding finally hits him. In retrospect, it should have been obvious, but he's been distracted by the fact that a stiff breeze could carry him away in his current state. To be clear, Jiria is looking to build a massive warrior family that has me as the man in the middle of it, right? I don't know about massive. Aren't men like 1 to 100 unless things go odd? Yes, but it's still a lot of people, Harold states. So, Jiria, Yazda, and now you, Dumia. I wonder if the cousin has a name ending in an A or AH sound. So you just accept? Like that? I'm not just accepting, I'm just not fighting it. I don't fully know what to think. In the galaxy, it is right and proper for a man to have many wives. From my memories from Herbert, I know it's fairly easily doable. Culture-wise, women are already well adjusted to this, and the drama is mostly minimal, as everyone generally thinks of themselves on the same team. I know that. But I'm wandering. I'm going to keep wandering, mostly following Observer Wu for a time. But would dragging whatever family forms around me into that be a good thing? I'm not staying, so having any part with... Harold starts to explain before the river spear finally stops fighting and dies of suffocation. Hung on for a while there, you vicious thing. It was drawing an axiom to keep alive, Javra notes. It was. Strange that animals can use axiom in such a way but rarely do. The first didn't do so before it was shot. I'm not apologizing for killing a dangerous animal attacking someone. I wasn't asking you to, Harold says before rolling his shoulders and then uncoiling the dead eel from around himself and tossing it to the shore to be next to the other. You didn't answer my earlier question, by the way. Oh, that's my next meal there, he says, pointing to the eels. If you want some, I need to grab more. Do you want some? You know what? I do. I've never had river spear before. Neither have I, and I have hot sauce for myself if I hate the taste. Oh, can I try that? No, it's poison to ceremony, Harold says before smirking at the look on her face. It tastes good to me, though. If you say so, and yes, I would like some river spear. She says, and he nods. Jiria returns an hour later, scuffed and with her war paint smudged. Not that Harold can see as she emerges from the tree line from behind him. She arrives just as Harold starts peeling the cooked flesh off the bones of the river spears he had caught. The meat is stringy, the bones are thin, annoying things that stick around everywhere, and it doesn't smell especially good. He gives the meat a sniff before eating it and a chewing. He then shrugs. Not bad, but holy hell does it need work. Oily and plain. Oh, don't be picky. Meat is meat, is meat is meat is meat. And meat is good food, Dumaya says dismissively, as she uses her fingers to peel out the strips and gulps them down with ease. Harold instead starts filling a bowl with them to douse in sauce. So are you two going to actually say something? Or do you think I'm not aware of you coming up behind us? Harold asks. Oh, so little Hugh Man can sense me? A woman asks, and she steps out from the tree line. A night black cloak shrouds her figure, and she has clear shoulder armor on underneath. The hood hides her face and features, but Harold's memories come from Herbert, a master at spycraft and subterfuge, trained by a legend at both. Come now, Takra. There is no need to hide yourself. I know what you are and what you can do, he says. Oh, do you? That will be interesting to see, she says, pushing back her hood. There are clan markings upon her pale skin and a spotted pattern in her blonde hair. Then she blurs towards him and finds herself face to face with a glass bottle filled with red liquid. Poison? Seasoning in my case, but for you? Yes, poison. He answers, and she unscrews the top before sniffing at it and flinching back. As she starts sneezing and coughing, he begins pouring some of the hot sauce onto his bowl of meat scraps and then holds the bottle back up as she regains control of herself. She obligingly returns the cap to its rightful place, and he then uses a pair of sticks to eat the scraps of meat. I need to pack in as much protein, fats, and everything else to regain my strength. So I hope you don't mind if I keep it up during our introductions. You'll have to look long and hard to find any Takra that would not approve of growing stronger, especially in a male, she says as she watches him all but slurp down the oily and spicy meat. Although, if I am to accept Juria's proposal, well, a video can be faked. And what I saw stretched the imagination to the breaking point. I cannot imagine any mortal man standing so long against the Lady of War. And the fact she was testing me, merely seeing my creativity, viciousness, and response to change, that at any moment she could have ended that fight in her favor, and I would have been powerless to stop her? Harold asked before quickly inhaling the last of his bowl. He sets it aside. He knows what's coming. It makes it a little more reasonable. But a man brave enough to create a massive grazer blast under his own feet and not dodging in order to ensure his opponent doesn't either. To rig up orbital weapons intending to fire on his own position? Are you truly that brave? She asks. All right, let's just do this. You want to fight? I need to get my digestion moving, and we'll both get what we want. Unless I throw up, but then I just get more food to eat and get back to things. That's almost enough by itself to convince me, but not quite, she says before laughing. Now then, bear witness to the strength of Takra. Her form constricts at first, then begins bulging outwards. She is almost entirely replaced by a colossal jaguar, with its tail replaced by a hissing serpent. How interesting. I wonder how much selective breeding was needed to get that and not another evolution in your warform, Harold notes as his stance widens. The Takra does not answer. She cannot. Her mouth no longer has the necessary parts, and her mind is only just barely under her own control. The enormous jaguar tries to bite, but finds its jaw unable to close as Harold holds her mouth open. He then breathes a quick puff of air into her nostril, and she flinches backward before sneezing. The sauce on his breath is still pretty powerful. That's when the jaguar pounces. But the next thing she senses him by isn't her typical eyes or ears. It's the heat-sensing pits on the serpent head, which snaps at him. So both are fully functional. Interesting, Harold notes as he slides away from the biting serpent tail.